Thank you very much. And, this is especially concerning to me because I am from Minnesota, and we dealt with a lot of things that were going on. And in June of 2020, Vice President Harris encouraged people from around the country to donate to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help bail out violent protesters who had violently assaulted police officers and burn a police precinct to the ground. For my friends on the other side who continuously bring up the protests during January 6th, let me remind you about all of the violence that we dealt with in Minneapolis in 2020. On Thursday, May 28, thousands of protesters began to surround the 3rd Precinct building, which is still empty and burned out. The mob begins throwing rocks and chunks of concrete at officers defending the perimeter of the building. Officers asked permission to use non-lethal scat rounds, which released tear gas to help disperse the mob. This request was denied. With officers still inside, the violent protesters began firing mortar and throwing Molotov cocktails at the building. The explosives finally did their work and led to the precinct going up in a blaze of fire. As officers evacuated, they found that the back gate of the precinct had been padlocked from the outside in an attempt to trap the officers inside to either burn to death or face the wrath of the mob. Thankfully, the officers were able to ram through the gate with a squad car and escape. Did any of my Democrat friends condemn this violence? I don't recall it. I don't recall them condemning that violence. Instead, Democrats like Vice President Harris called for donations to post bail for these people, and that's very, very well known all over Twitter, everything. And what was the result of all of those donations? The Minnesota Freedom Fund was able to bail out other violent offenders, some of whom went on to commit more violent crimes, including multiple people who went on to commit murder, thanks to the bail donations that Vice President Harris helped raise. Mr. Fitzgerald, can you add anything to the dangerous criminals that are being released thanks to these charitable bail funds?
Yeah, I think that the issue has been that there are so many of these bail funds now that have not only been able, I think, to forward the individual, the dollars that are needed for them to actually be released, but there's no real incentive. When you have a bail bonds outfit, I mean, that's on them. They could lose their license, certainly could be sanctioned by the courts if, in fact, somebody doesn't show up. But what's happening here is there's no accountability on the back end as well. So you've got some people that are serious offenders that are being re-released or they're being lost in the system right now. And I think that's as a result of the lack of accountability. I mean, the way it's built right now, there's very little accountability and very little incentive even for these funds to track where an individual goes after they make after the fees are paid. So
Thank you very much. And I just want to say, like I said earlier, I am from Minnesota. This is especially important to us. This is not an election year issue for us. This is something that we had to deal with when Vice President Harris was gathering money to bail these people out who had taken down not only that precinct, but done all kinds of damage, a Target nearby, a Cub nearby, a Cub food store. And so this is something that we do need to address. And I thank Mr. Fitzgerald for bringing it forward. Thank you, and I yield back.